Since the California missions make up a chain that passes through some of the most scenic areas of the state, along the coast from San Diego to Sonoma, many people have dreamt of visiting all 21 of them. I know I did, and fortunately, I've managed to do that, to visit each and every one of them. But there is also a special draw to walking the whole mission trail, which a growing number of people do every year. So today, I'm going into the archives and I'm presenting the first podcast episode I ever did for California Frontier. And it's an interview with author Maggie Espinosa, who not only walked the whole trail herself, but she wrote a very engaging book about it called On a Mission. I want to thank Maggie first and foremost, not only because she was a lively and entertaining guest, but because she was willing to be my first guest on the podcast. So once again, thank you, Maggie, for that. Now, you can find more information about her book in the show notes and at californiafrontier.net. Remember now, if you want to support the show, the best thing you can do is to tell other people about it. If you want to help out monetarily, you can scroll down to support the show on your podcast app on your phone, or else go to the website at californiafrontier.net, and there's a menu tab that says Shop and Support. So I appreciate any support you can offer. Now, on to the interview. California Frontier Podcast, Episode 1. The California Frontier Podcast is devoted to helping you explore and discover the Golden State's early history, from the time of its first peoples until statehood. My name is Damian, and I'm your host. There are 21 Franciscan missions in California, in a chain that stretches 800 miles between Sonoma and San Diego. If you've ever tried to visit all of them, you know it's a long way to drive. But imagine if you had to walk or decided to walk between all of them. A while back, I ran across a book on Amazon about a woman who walked the entire length of the California mission chain. It was something I've always wanted to do. And I had also heard about the California Mission Walkers, a group that supports people, exactly what their name suggests, walking between the California missions. So I ordered the book. It was titled On a Mission, an 800-mile walk to discover California's El Camino Real. When it came, I was captivated. It was personal, engaging, and written in a diary style, with lots of photos taken along the way. The author had even taken the time to include a personal thank you note in the book. So when I decided to launch this podcast, one of the first people I thought about contacting in order to arrange an interview was Maggie Espinosa, the author of the book. Fortunately for me, she was really gracious and agreed to answer my questions on the air. She's a really lively person, and I think you're going to enjoy this interview. In it, I ask her about what prompted her to take this journey, about the challenges she met along the way, about what her favorite mission is, and her advice for people who'd like to hit the trail like she did. So without further ado, let's listen to Maggie tell us about her journeys. Maggie Espinosa, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, when I saw your book, On a Mission, I thought to myself, I've got to get this book because it's something that I've always wanted to do, that is to walk, from the beginning of the mission trail all the way to its end. So I was really inspired when I got it, and I read through it and got your handwritten note thanking me for purchasing it. So first of all, I want to thank you for having written the book.
Anytime.
So can you give us a little background about yourself, where you grew up and what made you want to take on this project about the missions?
Sure. I grew up back on the East Coast in a town about 60 miles outside of Philadelphia called Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And many people know it because there is a large Amish population there. And I grew up there. I lived in Europe for a year and I went to college in Washington, D.C. And then I moved out to San Diego for a year 27 years ago.
Wow.
And so I came out here and actually I ended up meeting my husband out here, which is why I stayed out here.
Great reason.
But, growing up on the East Coast, history is a huge part of just being in school and growing up there. And you're just surrounded, whether you're at the Liberty Bell or you go to Boston with the Tea Party. I mean, it's just everywhere on the East Coast. So I came out here being a lover of history. And I came out here and kind of thought, okay, I need to this is a very new state and I need to kind of see what their history is all about out here.
Wow. Yeah, as I was mentioning, I think a lot of people sort of get that idea that at first, California always seems to be the state that's in flux, and then it seems to be the eternal present or the future, and then you begin to realize, wait, where is the history? And then as you start to turn over stones and look around you, you begin to see, no, there's actually something here. So
So, what's interesting and that I love about California is I love its progressiveness. I love that you can do anything, you can create, you can recreate yourself. There's so many things that you can do here in California that because of the traditions that are steeped on the East Coast, they're not as acceptable of it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And maybe that's been the way it's always been when you think about it. Some people always coming to start over here.
Yes.
So what prompted you to actually start walking between the different missions?
Well, I had wanted to learn more about California, as I'd said, and I am always up for, kind of a little bit of a challenge. I had summited Mount Whitney and I had done that and I had hiked the Grand Canyon rim to rim. And I was kind of toying with the idea, well, how am I going to see? I don't want to just drive California because you don't see anything because you're staring straight ahead.
Right.
So, I read an article in Westway magazine, which is our AAA, the Automobile Club magazine that we get here in Southern California. And the article was about a gentleman, a retired school teacher from Oregon, 72 years old, and he walked from the San Diego mission up to the Sonoma mission in 55 days straight.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, okay, at 72. So I think I can do this. And I thought, well, this really sounds like a great way to learn about this state. I mean, what what better way? And so I said, all right, I'm going to do it. Now, I'm not retired, so I couldn't take 55 days off straight to do it, nor do I have the stamina. So it was a good thing I couldn't. So I said, well, I think what I need to do is I need to break it up into 12 months. And it ended up taking 10 months as opposed to 12. But I said, okay, so every month I'm going to walk 80 miles over a long weekend. And I'm going to invite people to come along. Whoever wants to walk with me, whoever wants to join me can come on out and they can walk any segment of the walk with me. And so that's kind of how it happened. That's how I came up with the idea.
Well, that's really interesting. And yeah, the idea of doing it in one fell swoop is kind of intimidating, like you said, for those of us who are still working or maybe don't have the stamina. But the idea of breaking it up, that's what really appealed to me when I read your book. Now you said you invited a lot of people to come along with you, and I noticed in the book a whole lot did. Why do you think
Oh,
they
yeah.
wanted to join you?
Well, you know what? It was so funny because when I first said, I was telling my husband, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk the length of California. He's like, have fun.
Sure.
I said, and I'm going to see if people want to do it with me. He said, boy, you think anybody's going to want to do that? Well, I sent this email out and I was floored how many people said, I'd love to, I'll walk the Los Angeles leg with you, or I'll walk the, Santa Clara leg with you, or whatever. And I ended up having this great response from people who wanted to at least walk one of the legs with me to see what it was like. They were very curious. And the thing that was so fun is that I started walking with people I knew. And if you read the book, then you kind of, you found this out that all of a sudden, I was journaling on Facebook as I was walking, and I would be talking about my walk. Well, there is a group of people in California, unbeknownst to me, called the California Mission Walkers. And this group has just grown and grown. Well, they were following me on Facebook. And so these complete strangers would go on to Facebook and they'd say, well, you're just about to walk through my area. My wife and I would love to put you up at our house and we can make you dinner and et cetera, et cetera. And I'd even like to walk a day or two with you. And it became kind of, I always say kind of like this Pied Piper-ish kind of thing. It was me and my cadre of people. And that just amazed me how complete strangers started to take me in. And they would, if I ended one day and I was a little bit further from where I was going to stay that night, they would drive me to where the hotel was. They would feed me. It really, really ended up to be a study in how humanity really is good. It's not bad like we always see on the news.
And I think that's one of the things that sort of makes these treks, these long journeys so attractive to us is the friends you make, maybe the unexpected friends you make along the way and what you find out about humanity. That's amazing. Is there a particular moment or episode or memory that you have that stands out most of all?
Um, it's so hard to have just one moment that stood out. There's numerous moments. Unfortunately, halfway through the walk, my father passed away back in Florida.
Mhm.
And I had to finish this walk on a certain amount of time because I'm a travel journalist by trade. And the San Diego Union Tribune had hired me to write an article about this walk. And it was going to publish the very first weekend, the very first Sunday of January, as kind of like a New Year, New You piece.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't have the option to take a break. And so I flew home for his funeral. And then I ended up having to miss a month of walking because of that. So when I came back, I had to cover twice as much ground. And that the outpouring of people that just said, you know what, we're going to walk with you. We're going to come and walk with you. We want to, keep you company and et cetera. I had people that would walk. Originally they had walked maybe in January or, some particular month with me. And then they came back and walked a second time with. And, it just was to see this is I think that's the part that sticks out the most with me is to see how these people really kind of banded, they all banded together and they just kind of made sure that this walk was going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a particular mission or missions that you were attracted to or you found to be most beautiful or interesting?
Well, what was interesting, I felt, is that number one, the thing with every mission is that I couldn't believe the love that the people that care for these missions that they have for the mission.
Mhm.
I mean, the majority of the people are volunteers. They really are, they take such pride in these missions. And what was interesting is that if I would stop at if I be at a mission, so let's say, for example, Mission San Miguel, it's out in the middle of really nowhere. And have you been to the missions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And San Miguel's one of my favorites precisely because of how sort of far off the beaten path it is.
yes. And I got there, and so you know that it's this little town. They don't even have a stoplight. They don't have a traffic light. It's a stop sign. It's this little town. But the people adore this mission. And a number of years ago, there was an earthquake. And so they were not able to hold mass in the mission because they had to repair the mission and retrofit it. And so for 5 years, they held mass underneath this large white cross that was in kind of the garden courtyard area. And, it's just the love that these people had for this little mission. And then the antithesis of that was the mission in Carmel. It's in a very wealthy area. It happens to be the mission where Winipur is buried. And so that mission is just beautiful. I mean, it's opulent in the way a mission could be.
Right.
It's well taken care of, and it's large, and they have a large parish, and it's just very different. Same with San Juan Capistrano. That is where Father Sarah is said to have said mass at the Sarah Chapel. And when you walk in there, the entire altar is gold, and it's just breathtaking. So I really was taken aback at how different the missions were, as far as, some very simple, some of them are state parks. La Purísima is a state park, and you go there and you feel like, okay, I guess this is really what the mission was like that many years ago. So that was fascinating to see the difference.
I think one of the things that sort of you're pointing out when you say this is that the missions are still living communities. There are people taking care of them. They've got a sort of a life of their own, and they're still alive.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. It really it took me aback, that it was like that. There's a little I'm not sure if you're familiar with an area called Fort Hunter Liggett.
Oh, yeah,
It,
where San Antonio is.
yeah, Mission San Antonio. There is only 33 families that are the entire parish is made up of only 33 families. That is a small, small mission. But I tell you, there is two women that are there every day, and they are there to greet people that come in. You can even spend the night there at that particular mission. And it was interesting because that is beside the military base, Fort Hunter Liggett. And years ago, William Randolph Hearst owned all that land, 186,000 acres. And he gave the land to the military under the stipulation that 80, I think it was 80 acres were set aside that the mission was on, and that would remain the mission and the mission land. And to this day, it still has.
Yeah, San Antonio is just one of those places where you're stepping back in time. I was lucky enough. A good friend of mine was married at the mission. His wife's family always had a long connection with the mission, and we were able to go there and actually spend the night in one of those rooms and wake
Oh,
up in the morning at the mission. It was just a wonderful experience.
oh, yeah. I can imagine. I mean, then you can really feel like what it was like many years ago.
Exactly, exactly. And did you? I mean, you broke it up. You broke the trip up over 10 months, but and you mentioned the difficulty when your father passed away. Were you ever tempted, or did life get in between and tempted to say, okay, I don't think I can finish this?
I didn't say that. There were days that I cried
Mm,
where I was like, oh, why am I doing this? I mean, really, I was thinking, what am I doing? It was like it was mandatory, but I didn't think that I didn't think of quitting, because I had the article I was going to write, and I had already committed to that. So I knew I had to do that. And also if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. It's like if I'm going to make a commitment, then I'm just going to follow through, or else I won't make the commitment. So, were there days I questioned why? Yes. Were there days I said, nope, I don't want to do this anymore? No. And, it just so there's times when I was walking in 102-degree weather and there was no shade and I'm pouring water all over myself and, I'm questioning sanity. Yes. And there was times when there was no shoulder to the road and I'm walking over a mountain pass to get to some of the missions that are inland. Because if you look at a map, some are on the way on the coast, then you go over past inland, then you come back over to the coast, and you come back out. And that was really treacherous. And I thought, oh my word, this is, ludicrous that I'm doing this. So that, yes, crossed my mind many times, but to quit, no.
So how do you think the trip changed you, or did it change you?
The three things that I took away from that trip is one, that there is a reserve really, really deep inside everybody when it's called upon, when you just have to, because there are times that I just thought I can't do this. And the other thing is that, you know, friendships and family, and we tend to, take it a little bit for granted, or we tend to just kind of, oh, yeah, yeah, but they really are kind of, the heartbeat of life. They are the people that will rally around you and they will come and, when needed. And the third thing is what I'd said earlier is that, we watch the news, we read the newspaper, and we think, oh my word, should we even step outside our door? But basically, humanity is very, very good. I mean, there was a couple times that friends and we actually had to hitchhike, and hitchhiking nowadays is not, but these wonderful people would pick us up and say, where do you need to go? I mean, it just, people really, the majority of people are very good.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I've always heard growing up stories about hitchhiking. It's just, but it's wonderful when you see that human beings surprise you.
Yes.
You know, you were talking about the fact that to walk between the missions, you have to go over mountains or alongside highways or no shoulder roads, etc. Is there, knowing what you know now about the trip, is there anything you would have done differently if you were to start over and do it again tomorrow?
I think what I would have done differently, was I would have made sure that my footwear was a little, it took me a couple months until I finally got to where it was the best that it was going to be. My moleskin, and then toe socks, and then my shoes were, a size and a half larger than usual, because your feet are so swollen. I mean, I was always kidding around with friends, telling them I'd be wearing clown shoes by the time I get to Sonoma because they just were getting larger and larger. And there's no way that you can ever not have pain. But, I wish I would have started from the very get go. Like I found out in a few months into it that it helps to have walking sticks because it took a little bit of the pressure off my feet. I found out that there's compression socks that really help. But, all this I found out with each, month. So that I would really look into that a little bit more. But other than that, I don't think there was much else I could have changed because, the El Camino Real is the 101 and you cannot walk directly on the 101. So I had to go to Google Maps and see which way that I could kind of, follow the 101 without actually being on it. And then the gentleman, the retired school teacher, he wrote step by step turns for his entire walk when he had done it. So I had his notes too. So I couldn't really change either of those two.
Right. Well, I know that this idea has come up in the past, and I think it comes up every so often. The idea of actually creating a trail, sort of like the idea of the Camino de Santiago in Spain between the missions. What do you think about something like that?
Well, they're trying to do that now. In fact, this California Mission Walkers group are trying desperately to find a way that they can make this, how do I say, make it, um, something that would appeal to people. The problem now is there's two problems. One, there is no infrastructure. So when you walk the Camino de Santiago, there's these little towns and they have, places where you can buy something to drink or eat or relax or whatever. But when you get into Central California on this walk, there's there's nothing. I mean,
Hmm.
you can walk the entire day, and if you happen to get to that one little grocery store that's in the middle of nowhere, um, and it's closed, you're out of luck. So you must make sure that you have enough water on you, and you must make sure that you are, that you're not having to stop anywhere. So they need to change the infrastructure, and they need to make it so that some of the roads aren't as dangerous that you're walking on. And for that reason, I don't see it. We nickname it, we call it the Calmino, the Calmino for the California Camino. But one particular woman I walked with, she had walked the Camino de Santiago. So she thought, oh, I'll walk a section with you on the California Camino. And she made it for one day and she said, I'm going home. She said, this is nothing like the Santiago. And she said, this is just way too difficult. We were walking through Salina and walking through veggie fields and, it's a long way from being a tourist walk.
It's a long way to go. Well,
Yeah.
hey, what about can you tell us a little bit more about the California Mission Walkers? What have you
Yeah.
learned about them?
Well, you know what? They are an amazing group. And the interesting thing about them, okay, when I finished my walk, I was only the 11th person to ever walk the entire trail.
Oh, wow.
Because a lot of these California mission walkers, they don't really want to walk all of it, but they may live up in San Francisco. And so they'll walk maybe to San Rafael, Sonoma, and a couple of them there. Or they live in Central California and they'll walk to a few of them. And, they're, they just really, like we were talking earlier, they just really love the missions and they would like to be able to go and experience these missions. I think now there's probably maybe about 15 people that have walked the whole thing. But they're a really neat group. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to form some kind of a path that will be safe and that people can walk on. And then have little markers like in Santiago, they have the shell, where the shell is along the path. And they're trying, but I think, it's going to take quite a while.
Right. Well, it's a pretty exclusive group, only 15 people that have done it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so you're part of that group. If somebody else gets inspired and wants to do what you did, what advice would you have for somebody like me who's interested in doing it?
Well, I tell people because I have a number of people that ask me that. And I think the best thing to do is to take a section. So you're up in Santa Clara, you said?
Right.
So maybe take a section there that will be about 60 miles or 70 miles or whatever, and just walk that, but walk it like in consecutive days so that you get a feeling of what it would be like to walk this. Because you have to keep in mind that you're carrying everything on your back, so you have a backpack on. Many people camp. I'm not a camper. Not a camper unless I'm on the moon or something like that where there is no hotel. But I made it a point that from A to B at the end of that day that there will be a motel or something somewhere to stay at. But I always tell people, in fact, a group of California mission walkers in September walked from the Mission Ocala in San Diego to San Luis Rey in Oceanside and then to San Juan Capistrano. And they took, I think, about 4 or 5 days. And it really gave people a good sense of what it would be like to do this mission walk. And that's what I would suggest to you if you're going to do it. Pick 2 or 3 missions and walk to them.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a doable idea. That makes sense.
And the other thing too is that really like we always tell people, be really aware of how much you're carrying in your path, after a while it was like I was carrying a toothbrush, I was wearing the same pair of pants every day. It was
Mhm.
like, you just do not want to. I would buy t-shirts really cheaply at Costco, and then I would throw it out at the end of the day and put another one on. So that by the fourth day, when I was the most tired, my pack was the lightest.
So you had a system. You had it down to a system.
Yeah, which it kind of evolved through the month. But yeah, I did have a system probably by the time by about the fourth or fifth month.
Well, that makes sense. What what made you want to put this all into a book?
Well, you know what? I had I was not going to put it into a book, which is funny because, I've written books before, guidebooks. And so I had, journaled this, and I had a number of people say to me, like, this just needs to be a book. You need to There's not a lot of people that have done this, and this is a good story as to what all is involved to walk this. And I didn't want it to be deep or anything like that. And one thing I told myself that I would only journal at the end of every day's walk. Because if you write about something a week or two out, you put like rose colored glasses on it. Oh, it was great. I loved it, you know? But if you write about something at the end of the day, it's much more raw, it's much more honest. And so at the end of every day is when I would journal, and people would read this and they said, this has to be a book, and your photos, and, it just go for it. And I kind of vacillated back and forth. And then I thought, all right, let's do it. So it turned into a book.
Well, I think that's kind of what makes the book so fun and accessible is you really do get that sense that these are your thoughts right after you've gotten the chance to sit down at the end of the trail and think about what you've done. So I think that was a fantastic idea.
Oh, photo.
So any final thoughts about the trip? Anything you'd want to leave us with?
I always tell people, and myself included, I look at something and I go, I don't want to do that. But you really have to know your limits, and you have to really be prepared for, something. It's much harder than it sounds. And that if you do get into something like this and it's just not for you, then stop. Just don't keep doing it. And even I tell people, if you walk to two missions, that's fine. You've walked to two missions. That's great. You are a mission walker. If you've walked to one or two missions, you're still a mission walker. So I tell people that. And then also people always say, am I going to walk the Camino to Santiago? And it is an emphatic no,
No.
no. Because I told my husband, if I say, hey, I think I might go walk to Santiago, I said, tie me to a chair. Do not, because, that's a lot. You back to the same thing. It's walking 16 miles a day for 33, 35 days straight.
Right. Right. Well, Maggie Espinosa, where can people get a copy of your book?
You could get on my website, which is travelwithmaggie.com, and there's a section that says books, or you can get it on Amazon. And if you get it on Amazon, then I will send it to you, and you can let me know how you would want me to personalize it. I can personalize it to people or whatever.
And I can, as I can vouch for the fact that Maggie does personalize the book. And as you mentioned, you have your own website. You're a travel writer, travelwithmaggie.com. What do you cover on your website?
Oh, I tell you, from soup to nut. That's an old saying, but that's what I cover. I cover everything from petting whales in Mexico to swimming with pigs in the Bahamas to going to Guatemala to everything, anything that has to do with travel.
Well, that's great. Maggie, this has been very inspirational. I'm sure to me, and I'm sure to many other people who will listen to this, I want to get out and start walking between the missions closest to my house, and maybe I can make it to all 21 of them eventually.
Yay!
So, Maggie, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us about your book, On a Mission, an 800-mile walk to discover California's El Camino Real. And it was really great. And I hope that other people will get inspired by what they read in this wonderful book.
Well, thank you very much, Damian. It's been nice talking with you.
So, what are the takeaways from my conversation with Maggie? Well, I'd say, first of all, number one, everyone has a reserve inside. You can do more than what you think you can. Secondly, friendship and family are the heartbeat of life. And thirdly, humanity is good. No matter what things happen, we know that ultimately people are good. That's what Maggie took away from her journey. She also wrote about things at the end of the day when they were still raw. That helped her to avoid rose-colored glasses when thinking about her adventures. The caretakers of the missions have a great love for these places. That's another thing that she learned along the way. And as you heard, footwear is important. Maggie also reminds us to create a system when you're thinking about doing this, and know your limits. Know when to stop and know when you've pushed yourself enough. For more information about this interview, including links to Maggie's book, her website, and the Facebook page of the California Mission Walkers, go to www.californiafrontier.net/001. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the California Frontier Podcast. If you like what you heard, consider leaving a review on iTunes. It's a great way for other people to find out about the show. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.californiafrontier.net. There, you'll find the show notes for this episode. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest. If you have a question, a comment, or a suggestion, make sure to drop me a line to Damian@californiafrontier.net.